she told me. If anyone finds out, we're finished. But by then, I'd already stopped pretending. It started as something simple, a favor, a quiet visit, a conversation that went too long. But every silence between us grew heavier, every glance lasted a little too long. She was older, confident, careful, and yet I saw the part of her that no one else did. The part that wanted to feel alive again. This isn't a story about perfection. It's about timing, temptation, and the moment when two people cross a line they can never quite come back from. The first time she said my name, it didn't sound like a question. It sounded like something she wasn't supposed to say out loud. We were standing too close in her kitchen, the kind of closeness that isn't planned but lingers anyway. The late afternoon light came through the window blinds, cutting soft lines across her face, across the small gold chain at her collarbone. She had that calm, deliberate way of moving, as if she thought through every gesture. And still, her hand trembled slightly when she passed me the mug of coffee. "Thanks," I said. My voice didn't sound right, too steady, too polite for what was happening between us. Her lips curved, not quite a smile. "You always say that," she murmured. "Like you don't know what to do with silence." The air thickened. She leaned back against the counter, arms crossed, pretending to be at ease. But her eyes, sharp and searching, didn't look away. I wasn't supposed to be here. I knew that. But she texted me, "Could you stop by? Just for a minute." And I came. Of course I did. Her husband was out of town again. She'd mentioned it in passing, as though it meant nothing. Yet the way she said, again, carried a quiet exhaustion, the kind that stays in the body. I tried to focus on the sound of the clock. The faint hum of the refrigerator. The smell of coffee and her perfume, sandalwood, faint, but impossible to ignore. My pulse stuttered every time she moved. She broke the silence first. "You shouldn't look at me like that." I didn't answer right away. Maybe because I didn't know how not to. "You said to come?" I finally said. "I came." Something flickered in her expression, not anger, not surprise, just recognition. The kind that passes between two people who've run out of reasons to pretend. She looked down, fingers brushing the edge of the counter, then met my eyes again, slower this time. "You're too young to understand what this means," she said quietly. "Then tell me," I said. Her jaw tightened, like she'd almost laugh if she weren't so close to saying something dangerous. "If anyone finds out," she began, her voice low, careful, "we're finished." She stepped closer, not enough to touch, but close enough that I could feel the heat of her skin through the air between us. Her breath caught. The sunlight shifted across her hair, a soft glint of gold moving with her. "Then no one will find out," I said. Her eyes softened, and for a heartbeat, the space between us dissolved. The pulse in her throat, the tiny movement of her fingers, it all became one quiet, undeniable rhythm. She was trying to resist it. I could see it. The restraint was almost painful to watch. Her next words came out barely above a whisper. "Don't pretend you don't want me here." I felt every word like a pulse under my skin. My reply was slower, steadier than I expected. "I stopped pretending a long time ago." She exhaled, almost laughing, but it sounded like surrender. The mug slipped from her hand and clattered into the sink, echoing through the small kitchen. Neither of us moved to pick it up. For a long moment, there was only that sound, and the space between our breaths. Then came the noise we weren't expecting, the sharp creak of the front door opening, someone's footsteps echoing down the hallway. Her eyes snapped toward the sound. Mine stayed on her. And just like that, everything we'd tried not to feel, hung suspended in the air, waiting to fall. The sound of the door had passed. It was only a neighbor. She'd called out a greeting, her voice too calm, too composed. By the time she turned back to me, the moment had shifted into something quieter, heavier. "See?" she said softly. "That's what I mean. One sound, one wrong glance, and everything changes." I wanted to say it already had. Instead, I sat down on the small couch across the room, the same one she'd once said she hated but couldn't throw away. The air smelled faintly of rain now, the window left slightly open, and her perfume still lingered on my sleeve. "You used to talk more," she said after a long silence. "I used to know what to say." Her expression faltered, something between guilt and nostalgia crossing her face. "You remind me of him," she said. "Your husband?" I asked. She shook her head. "No. Someone before him. Someone who actually looked at me when I spoke." I didn't ask what happened. The way she traced the rim of her glass, slowly, told me enough. For a moment neither of us moved. The distance between us wasn't far, but it felt deliberate, like a border she had drawn just to prove she could. "You think I don't know how this looks?" she said finally, her tone softer now. "You, 20-something, full of easy confidence. Me, with a reputation to keep intact. It's absurd. Then why did you ask me to stay?" She looked away, her lips parting like she wanted to say something true, but chose something safer instead. "I didn't want to be alone tonight." Her honesty made the room feel smaller. I noticed the faint lines near her eyes, the kind that came not from age, but from years of keeping emotions under control. She sat beside me. Not close enough to touch, but close enough that my breath adjusted to hers. We didn't speak for a while, just the sound of rain tapping the window and the ticking of the wall clock. Her shoulder brushed mine, accidental maybe, but she didn't move away. My hand rested against the couch cushion between us. She glanced down at it, that tiny, unspoken moment of choice, and then let her fingers graze mine, almost curious. The contact was barely there. But it was enough. She exhaled, eyes still fixed forward. "You should be careful with this," she said, her voice trembling despite her calm expression. "With what?" I asked. "With me." She smiled then, a small, reluctant smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her hand lingered a second longer before she withdrew it, fingers curling against her lap as if she didn't trust them. But the warmth stayed, where her skin had touched mine, where her voice had softened. When she finally stood, the silence between us wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It was something else, charged, fragile, and alive. She turned toward the hallway, paused, and looked back. "Tomorrow," she said quietly. "Come by after 6. And then she left me there, alone, heart still beating too fast, already counting the hours. It was already dark when I arrived the next evening. The house looked different at night, softer, quieter, like it was holding its breath. Through the window, I saw her moving around the kitchen, hair loosely tied, sleeves rolled up. Not the careful, poised version of her I'd seen before, this was her unguarded. Real. She didn't hear me at first when I knocked. When she opened the door, surprise flickered in her eyes, followed by something warmer. "You came," she said, almost as if she hadn't expected I would. "You told me to," I replied. Her smile was small, tired. "I say a lot of things I shouldn't." Inside, the lights were low. A half-finished glass of wine sat on the counter, a few papers scattered beside it. She moved past me, her shoulder brushing my arm, a small, unintentional spark that left me frozen. "Rough day?" I asked. She gave a faint laugh. "Every day's rough lately." Her fingers lingered on the edge of the counter. "He called," she added, voice soft. "He's coming back early." I didn't need to ask who he was. The air thickened, every word suddenly weighed down. "Maybe I shouldn't be here," I said quietly. She turned to face me then, eyes searching mine. "Maybe you shouldn't." But she didn't move. Her voice faltered, softer now. "You make it too easy to forget what I'm supposed to protect." The silence after that stretched, just the hum of the fridge and the uneven rhythm of our breathing. She stepped closer, as if drawn against her better judgment. My pulse matched her movements, slow, uncertain, magnetic. I could smell her perfume again, faintly mixed with the wine. Her hand brushed my sleeve, light, questioning. Neither of us spoke. Then came the sound, a vibration, sharp and sudden. Her phone lit up on the counter, screen flashing a name. She froze. So did I. Her husband's name. She reached for it, but her hand stopped midway, trembling. The phone buzzed again before going silent. "He'll know if I don't answer," she whispered. I nodded. "Then answer." But she didn't. Instead, she looked at me, really looked, as though searching for the strength to do either the right or the wrong thing. "I hate that this feels right," she said. Her confession hit the air like a spark. The distance between us closed without meaning to, her breath brushing against my chin, her eyes flicking to my mouth and back again. The world outside the kitchen didn't exist. Just this, the nearness, the heat, the trembling pause before something that couldn't happen but almost did. She inhaled sharply, like she just remembered the rules. "We can't," she said, though her voice broke halfway through the word. I didn't move. "I know." But neither of us stepped back. Her hand rested on my chest for just a second, feeling the pulse that betrayed me, fast, unsteady, too loud. And then she turned away, pressing her palms flat against the counter, her shoulders rising with each breath. The silence stretched again, heavier now, charged. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "If anyone finds out, we're finished." I didn't answer. I just stood there behind her, close enough to feel her warmth, close enough to understand that neither of us had any intention of stopping. It rained again that night, hard enough to blur the streetlights and drown out thought. I hadn't planned to see her, but plans never seemed to matter anymore. My phone buzzed just once. "Can you come?" No punctuation. No explanation. Just that. When she opened the door, her hair was damp, a few loose strands clinging to her cheek. She didn't speak, just stepped aside so I could enter. The air smelled of rain, candle wax, and something warmer. Her living room was dim, lit only by the flicker of a small lamp. A soft melody played in the background, something old, something aching. She stood near the window, arms crossed, staring at nothing. "You shouldn't have come," she said. "You asked me to." Her eyes flashed toward me. "That's not what I meant." There was something in her tone I hadn't heard before, not calm, not controlled. Raw. I moved closer. "Then what did you mean?" She turned, facing me fully now. "You don't understand what this is doing to me." Her voice cracked at the edges. "I can't stop thinking about you, when I'm cooking, when I'm working, when I'm supposed to be sleeping beside someone else." The words hit like a physical thing. For a moment, neither of us breathed. I stepped closer, and she didn't move away. The distance between us vanished, replaced by the faint heat of our skin meeting the same air. "Say it again," I murmured. Her lips parted, trembling slightly. "You heard me." I reached up, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. She closed her eyes, just for a second, as if the touch itself was too much. When she opened them again, something inside had broken, all the restraint, all the careful distance. "I keep trying to convince myself this is wrong," she whispered. "But when you look at me like that, like what? Like you already know how it would feel." Her voice had dropped to a whisper, but every word felt heavy, electric. I could feel her heartbeat against mine now, fast, uneven. Her fingers tightened in the fabric of my shirt, pulling me the slightest bit closer, then freezing, unsure whether to let go or hold on. The rain outside grew louder. Her breath brushed my neck as she spoke again, almost trembling. "If I cross this line, I won't be able to take it back." My reply came out softer than I meant it to. "Then don't cross it." But my hand was already at her waist, her palm already against my chest. Her eyes flicked down to my mouth. "You don't mean that." "Maybe not." We stood there, breath to breath, heartbeat to heartbeat, the world narrowing until there was only this impossible, suspended moment. And then, the sharp knock on the front door. Once. Twice. Harder the third time. Her body went still. The sound echoed through the quiet room, and she whispered, barely audible, "Don't move." The knocking didn't stop. 3 more hits, sharp, impatient, before silence swallowed the sound whole. She didn't breathe until it ended. When it did, she turned toward me, eyes wide, chest rising too fast. "Don't," she whispered, but her voice broke before the word finished. I stayed still, every muscle waiting for what came next. Outside, footsteps retreated down the porch steps, fading into the rain. She pressed a hand to her chest, trying to steady herself. "That was him," she said quietly. "He wasn't supposed to be back until morning." I felt the words sink, slow and heavy. "Did he see?" "No," she swallowed. "But he knows. Somehow, he always knows." Her shoulders shook, but not from cold. I wanted to reach for her, to calm her, but she stepped back, a full, deliberate step that left a slice of space between us. "You should go," she said. "Now." But then she hesitated. Her eyes moved over me, the wet hair, the soaked jacket, the unspoken things between us, and she didn't repeat it. Instead, she turned away, leaning against the wall, her fingers gripping the edge of the windowsill until her knuckles turned white. I took a careful step closer. "You're shaking." She gave a bitter laugh. "You think that's fear?" The sound died quickly, replaced by quiet. She stared at her reflection in the window, her voice low and trembling. "You don't even know what you walked into, do you?" I didn't answer. She turned to me, eyes bright, part anger, part something deeper. "He knows about you," she said. "He asked me last week if I was seeing someone." I lied. "I told him you were just helping with the house." "He didn't believe me." The confession hit hard, not because of what it meant, but because of how she said it. There was no apology in her tone, just exhaustion. "You lied for me," I said quietly. "For us," she corrected, then shook her head. "No, for me. Because I wanted this. I wanted you. And now it's too late to pretend otherwise." The space between us filled again, charged, trembling. Her hand brushed mine as she passed, accidental, maybe, but she didn't pull away. The contact was small, fleeting, but it burned. "Tell me to stop," I said. She turned, meeting my gaze with something like defiance. "I can't." Her voice was steady now, almost calm, but her hands betrayed her, trembling slightly as she reached up, fingers barely grazing my jaw, then pausing as if afraid of what she'd find if she kept going. "You think this is just desire," she whispered. "But it isn't. It's the first time I've felt seen in years." Her words left the air trembling between us. Outside, thunder cracked, sharp, startling. The lights flickered. She didn't move. Neither did I. Finally, she exhaled, long, uneven. "If we do this, there's no undoing it." I took a step closer, close enough to feel her breath on my lips. "I know." And this time, she didn't step away. The storm hadn't stopped. It roared outside her house, wind battering the windows, rain streaking down the glass like everything outside was trying to blur us out. Inside, though, everything was too still. Too loud in its quiet. We stood in the middle of the living room, the kind of space that had seen every version of her, but never this one. Her breathing was uneven, eyes bright and wet in the half-light. "This can't keep happening," she said finally. "I keep saying that, but you keep showing up. You keep asking me to." She opened her mouth to argue but stopped. The truth sat between us, too alive to deny. "I don't even know what you want from me," she said, her voice trembling in the softest way. "You do." Her laugh cracked. "You think this is easy? You think I don't lie awake after you leave, wondering what kind of person I'm becoming?" Her words were sharp, but they broke something in both of us. I took a step closer, then another, until she had to tilt her head back slightly to keep looking at me. "I never asked you to be anyone else," I said quietly. "Just be here. With me." The distance disappeared. My hand found hers, not bold, not reckless, just steady. She didn't pull away. Her fingers tightened around mine, like holding on was both a sin and a relief. "I can't protect this," she whispered. "Not from him, not from myself." "Then don't." She inhaled sharply, eyes searching mine for the lie, but there wasn't one. The silence between us wasn't empty anymore, it pulsed. She reached up slowly, brushing a raindrop from my cheek, or maybe a tear. "I wish I met you before I became careful," she said. "You haven't stopped being brave," I said. She laughed softly, a sound half sorrow, half surrender. The space between us felt thinner than breath. Every word, every hesitation we danced around for weeks lived right there, in the distance we no longer wanted to keep. "Tell me to stop," she said again, voice breaking. I shook my head. "I can't." Her hand came to rest against my neck, and for a heartbeat, the world stilled. No storm, no noise, just that shared, fragile gravity. She leaned in, eyes half closed, her lips trembling from restraint rather than certainty. And then she froze. Not because of doubt, but because she finally understood what it meant if she didn't. Her forehead pressed against mine, breath shaking. "If we start this," she whispered, "I'll lose everything I built to survive." I closed my eyes. "And if we don't?" She didn't answer right away. Her hand lingered at the edge of my jaw, thumb trembling, until she finally whispered, "Then I'll lose what makes me feel alive." Neither of us moved after that, suspended between ruin and honesty, between what we wanted and what it would cost. And in that moment, with the storm outside raging, we both understood, whatever came next would change everything, and neither of us would ever be the same. The rain had stopped by morning. The city outside her window looked washed clean, quiet, new, almost forgiving. Inside, the house felt different too. The air wasn't heavy anymore, it just lingered, like it didn't know how to settle after a storm. She sat at the edge of the couch, hair loosely falling over her shoulder, a half-empty cup of coffee cooling in her hands. When I came in from the kitchen, she looked up, tired, beautiful, unguarded. For the first time, either of us tried to fill the silence. "Did you sleep?" I asked softly. She shook her head. "I kept thinking, how close we came." Her voice was calm, not ashamed, just honest. I sat across from her, elbows resting on my knees. "And what did you decide?" A faint smile touched her lips. "That maybe we stopped at the right moment." I nodded. It wasn't what I expected, but it was real. She looked down at the mug, tracing its rim with her finger. "You make me feel seen, you know that? Not young, not old, just here." I leaned back, letting her words settle. "That's all I ever wanted." She glanced up, meeting my gaze again. "I was terrified of this," she admitted. "The age, the whispers, what people would think. But the truth is, the only thing I should have feared was never letting myself feel anything again." Her honesty hit something deep inside me, not desire this time, but something quieter, steadier. Respect. I moved closer, slow enough for her to stop me if she wanted. She didn't. When I sat beside her, she exhaled, a long, shaky breath that felt like release. "Maybe we don't need to name it," I said. "Maybe it's enough that we both know it's real." Her head tilted slightly, eyes searching mine. Then, without a word, she leaned against me, not in passion, but in peace. My arm went around her shoulders, and she rested there, her fingers finding mine, weaving together easily, like they'd been waiting for that shape. "I used to think love had to be loud," she whispered. "Dramatic. But this..." She paused, brushing her thumb over my hand. "This feels quieter. Truer." I smiled, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. She closed her eyes, a faint smile playing at her lips, and for the first time, the quiet didn't feel like something to fill, it felt like something earned. Outside, sunlight broke through the clouds, spilling over the window and catching on her hair. She turned her face toward it, eyes half closed, and whispered, almost to herself, "Maybe it's okay to start again. Even if it's not the way people expect." I nodded. "Maybe that's the only way it ever really starts." We sat like that, not hiding, not explaining, just two people who'd finally stopped pretending. And when she finally looked at me again, her smile was small, certain, and impossibly warm.